Welcome to Chasing the Beats, a show dedicated to weeklybeats.com artists, their songs, and stories from the 2024 season and beyond. I'm your host, SQF, and our guest today is ilzxc. All right, welcome to ilzxc, or ilzxc for you spellers out there. Glad to have you on, man.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm honored and excited.
Wow, we're at the point now where it's an honor to be on here. That's impressive.
I don't listen to podcasts much at all, and I have been listening to this one. So yes,
Awesome.
This is
That's
up there.
great to hear. That's great to hear. Yeah, it's been fun putting it together. And actually, this was one of those, like, I skipped last week because I had kind of a busy week, and I was just like, I need like a little break. And then I was like, kind of not feeling it again this week when I like reached out to everyone like, hey, does anyone know anyone? And then I was like immediately uplifted and helped by the community. And then I started listening to your stuff, and then all of a sudden I was like, all right, I'm excited now. Like, so that got me over the hump of like, man, should I just like take another break, you know?
Yeah, like I mean, in Weekly Beats terms, how many weeks has it been? How many episodes? What is this episode number?
This
30
is
something?
episode 37. Yeah.
37. Yeah. So we're past the halfway mark, right? For the Weekly Beats, which means
We're
that the
past the
burnout is happening.
halfway.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, I've done my best to channel my Weekly Beats experience to like try and avoid burnout. But you know,
Mhm.
like with everything you do, like there's that
Yes.
like I kind of need a little break.
Yeah, you took
But
a week off.
I was
That's huge.
yeah, I was sort of like, I've been talking with people on this show about like it's okay to break the streak and then come back. And I was like, well, I guess I should set an example here.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah,
Lead
so
by
I
example.
did.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're back. So cool. This 2022 was your first year Weekly Beats, right?
Yes, that's right. And I wasn't even like, I literally found out about it basically as it was starting because Trash 80 sent a message on the M8 Discord or M8 maybe newsletter advertising Weekly Beats. And I thought, oh, why not? Right. And so like I kind of signed up
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
last minute, and then and then I did 52 tracks in 1 year. So that's the magic of it.
Wow, that's amazing. And how long had you had an M8 before then?
Not that long. I got it. So I got it the year before, but like I only had it for like a few months, I think, before the Weekly Beat started. And
Oh wow,
I
okay.
had it long enough, I guess, to like experiment enough with it. And like, but yeah, I was pretty fresh at the time, and and so was the firmware. So yeah, it was a completely different device, I think. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's back in the day for sure. And what was your experience making music prior to that?
Right. So okay, it started in like 1997 or 1998, and it was English pre-AP class, which had another weekly beater there named Noggin, who was my classmate,
Hmm.
and we had a few classes together, and we talked about music kind of a fair amount. And then Noggin put this software called Buzz on the computer in our MediaTek class, and that was my introduction to trackers. So I kind of started like around, I think it must have been 98 or something like that. It was still high school.
Yeah.
And that was when, yeah, that's when sort of things clicked for me, because like this realization that I could just use my computer and make music in this weird spreadsheet like software that was kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
I instantly grokked it and got it. And then yeah, and I also convinced Noggin to do Weekly Beats into 2022.
Oh,
And
sweet, sweet.
so like, and Jim Mack, who was the kind of de facto superstar badass at the time of like, he's slightly older than us and was making like really compelling music with the tracker. So that's sort of
Wow.
how it started.
Cool. And you and Noggin have been making music since like 98 together?
We so actually no, we've kind of been like going our separate ways throughout, school and grad school and jobs and other
Yeah,
things. And then but then through, we would be in touch sometime. And then Weekly Beats was an amazing way to actually, and I mean, same thing with Jim Mack, with whom I haven't talked since very early 2000s. But then Polyend released a Polyend tracker, and all of a sudden, I think I
yeah,
just saw Jim Mack randomly pop up on one of the social media things related to Polyend tracker, and then it just kind of it's all trackers, as far as I'm concerned. Trackers just kind of bring us back together, and then we
yeah,
managed to, yeah, to do this. And there was, I mean, in 2022 for sure, there was a huge amount of M8 work on Weekly Beats.
yeah,
So yeah, which was great. But there was also a remarkable amount of incredible musicianship happening all over the place. And so with somebody, as somebody with a relatively eclectic music taste, or I guess who likes a lot of stuff, it was pretty amazing. There's incredible musicianship and a lot of people with performance chops that are incredible. And then you have you know folks like Orange Drink, who kind of do it everything and then make videos at the same time. So
yeah. That
yeah,
yeah. Props to
yeah,
those videos too, man. That's a lot of extra work.
yes,
And uh, had you messed around with any other devices? Like, I know you have extensive experience with trackers and maybe the poly end, but before you got the M8, were you messing around with any other devices?
yeah. I did a lot of music on a computer, but once I got a job where I stared at a computer all day, I really did not want to stare at a computer at night. But the side effect of a job is some money, so first got
Right.
into some electron devices. So I think
Nice.
and then yeah, I have a few synths and a few boxes here and there. And then during the pandemic, I also got really, whatever we call that, the pandemic mood. My cure for that was buying a guitar
Right. Yeah.
pedal every month for a year.
Nice.
So I got into
Nice.
guitar pedals. And what's ironic about this is that for years I've been saying that I'm not going to get into modular because that's
Oh
that's
boy.
so much
Yeah. Yeah.
money. Yeah. Except that I did the same exact thing that folks do with modular, just with guitar pedals. It's a slightly different, they're not mounted, but just
Right.
bought a bunch of devices. And then yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's so I am primarily a mate for writing stuff, but I've also been recently working just with the Digitone 2 and Digitac 2 setup that's right next to me. And
Nice.
and then and also been getting into Nanoloop. So I've been playing around with the analog
Okay.
pocket. Yeah, so doing some stuff with Nanoloop 2 and a little bit of Nanoloop mono, but I need to get better at that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been messing around more with my Digitone too, and I am loving it. Like it's so much fun.
Yeah. It's
It's a different way of making music from the M8, but definitely a lot more like hands-on performance kind of stuff.
completely, yeah. I mean, the my because Weekly Beats taught me to be a pragmatist, right? So it's I was, there are folks like Wangus who are just M8 only, and everything is done on the device and stuff. And I cannot work that way. I'm too ADHD for that.
Yeah, yeah,
So for me, it's always having, stems from M8 that may be incomplete. And then after that, throw them into DAW and sort of do the final set of edits there. And
got it.
so, and for playing live, I put all those stems into an Octatrack, which is also a really
Oh, okay.
fascinating performance machine. So yeah,
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 I've always been tempted to dig into the Octatrack now that I'm in the like electron world, and I'm like, it's not as hard as people think, or that they make it out to be. But I'm also like, as soon as I buy one, they're gonna like drop a new Octatrack.
yeah,
Although I'm sure people would argue that like this one's still very capable,
yeah,
but the videos I watched so far, they still kind of like mystify me of like what exactly is going on here.
yeah. It's I genuinely think that there is some kind of a misrepresentation of the difficulty with most of this gear. I don't think that the M8 is
Mhm.
confusing. I don't think that Octatrack is confusing. I
Yeah.
think that most things kind of click whenever you just spend a few hours just by yourself with something, and then like,
Right.
so I certainly I love my mate probably more than anything else for a number of reasons, but I'm also very grateful for like sliders and multiple outputs on the Octatrack, which
Oh yeah. Yeah.
enables some things. Yeah.
I
So
love it all. Like we're in
yeah,
the heyday of somewhat affordable like music gear, because like you look at the prices of some of the synthesizers that were coming out when we were in high school, like in today's money they're like $30,000, and like just insane out of reach for the majority of people.
completely. Yeah, I think that I've heard somebody say that right now is the best time to make music, and then probably the worst time to make money from making music at the same time.
That's the
So
truth, that's the truth.
so
So uh 2022, and I'm focusing on 2022 right now because you didn't finish 2024, which is okay. There's no knock
oh
on
yeah,
that. But you were doing other stuff that I want to get into as well. But I'm kind
yeah.
of curious, coming off of my first weekly beats experience, I'm curious about your experience doing a challenge like that for probably the first time, and just like things that came out of that experience for you.
Oh, well, okay. So I loved Weekly Beats. My main regret is not taking a couple of weeks off. There were 2 weeks where I really should not have even done speed trash or anything else, like where rest would have been more
Right. Yeah.
important. But I kind of I don't know how to put this. Like it seems really daunting on paper, right? It's like every week,
Mhm.
no, like not skipping a week, make a track and then do stuff. And one of my challenges for myself was to also mix and master everything, which like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
few tracks I just couldn't really like spend enough time on it. I still pseudo mixed things, meaning like I had a mix session, but the
Right.
mixes are trash because ears were tired and things were just like literally done
Yeah,
at the 11th
mhm.
hour. You know? So yeah, on paper, Weekly Beat sounds kind of intense, but my experience was
Yeah.
the opposite because there was like a whole lot of instant gratification from like that is both like
Yeah.
creating something that you like and then like listening to that stuff and listening to a whole bunch of music by your like well at first strangers then a bunch of friends
Yeah, yeah, totally.
and then like the entire year kind of felt awesome, especially because like you do this for a while and it just becomes kind of a cool thing that you do with other members of the community, and then
Yeah.
that feels relatively cool. Having said that, I could not have foreseen just how much quarters matter. Like at the end of the first quarter, it was just like, yeah, let's go. This was great. And then by the time that the second quarter rolls around, like third weekend, you're like, oof, this is a lot. Like I'm beginning to feel something. And then
Uh-huh.
by the end of the year, I'm just like, I am so burnt out. I also set a number of challenges for myself where like I kind of felt like I couldn't just phone it in, like because I was doing a bunch of remixes for
Yeah.
people, and I was like, you can't just like phone it in completely. And so yeah, was a little bit scary, and sometimes like it really did not feel fun at all. But having said
Yeah.
that, I don't know. I worked with music, like as I said, I started a long time ago, and I went to music school. And I think Weekly Beats is way better than music school. So like, just yeah, working through whatever adversarial like things that your head does is important. And like, and oh, I will say this: like when I started Weekly Beats, I would say that probably 90% of my music making time was like dealing with insecurity and like with insecurity about your decisions and
Yeah.
insecurity about like other
Uh-huh.
things because and then like by the time that you kind of do a whole bunch of things at once it becomes really sort of freeing. So here's how I'll put it. Like if you so the first post is really terrifying because if the track that you're
Yes.
posting is not good, right? 100% of your output on Weekly Beats sucks. And that is bad, right? And then like there are two
That's true.
tracks and then like, but now if the first track is awesome and the second track is bad, only half of your material is actually bad, right? And then
Right.
it becomes like
Yeah.
1/3, etc. So like the moment that you have like 3, 4, 5 bangers, all of a sudden you're just like, I'm good. I'm actually good. Like I deserve to not necessarily make a banger for a while. And that creates
Yeah.
a rather amazing like follow up, which is like, wait a second, I can take a risk. Like I can actually do something that I'm very uncomfortable with,
Mm,
or I can do something that I'm perhaps terrified by, or something that I've never done before. And then it becomes easy to do this because proportionally speaking, it's just another drop in the bucket of like continual over a course of the full year output. I think that's the trick. That's the
yeah.
reason why it's way better than school. It's not about like, you know, it's it's the period, right? Once the period becomes small enough of just like a week, but it's still long enough to make something cool, that's when I think that the
Right.
superpowers get unlocked because it's like, yeah, of the 52, you can absolutely take the craziest risk you've had like 5 times and it's not going to affect your overall feel about your body
Right.
of work. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That is a really good way of putting it. And the the quarters also kind of mark some of that. Like the first quarter is like, oh, what am I getting into? Like, do people actually like this? Like, what's going on? And then by the end, you're like, we're just all making songs trying to get through the week. Like here's what came out this week.
Yep. And then I mean, but you also kind of get this insight where it's like you read the description and it's going to be so like you listen to the song and it's like the best thing you've heard ever from somebody that you love and you're like, holy shit,
Yeah.
this is amazing. And then like you read the description, it's like, oh man, I've been really tired this week. I'm not really sure like what this is. And it's like, dude, okay, I now understand exactly how I'm wrong about my own material and other things. And this is like
Exactly.
this is yeah, Orange Drink has, I think, an amazing. The orientation video for 2024 was like an incredible, like jokes around this particular notion and how, yeah, if you just let that inform you, right, that you can't,
Right.
yeah, that you're often wrong about what it is that you like and dislike about your own stuff, and that's awesome.
And that's kind of freeing in a lot of ways because it's like, uh, I guess I'm not a really good judge of my own music, so maybe I shouldn't, weigh my decisions so heavily.
Yes, I 100%. Yeah, I just agree with that.
Although I never thought that I got kind of into the like letting go and being really experimental because I was like more worried about me not liking the song or not having enough time to finish it. Like I was always like fighting this anxiety of like this thing isn't like coming together. Okay, I'll just go have fun and wow, it came together and I'm like, like the instant gratification moments. So that's kind of what I'm shooting for next year is like being a little bit more adventurous.
Yeah, I guess a few things were just really heavy that year in 2022. Like the war with Ukraine happened. I'm of the Russian origin, and that was really sort of haunting, just in terms
Mm,
of like identity and culture and
yeah.
other things. And I opposed the war in Ukraine. There was also like my grandma passed away at some point in the time, and I had like
Mm,
but I still was just like, well, it's like it feels weird making a banger during that time, but like it's okay. And then
yeah.
Supreme Court passed some legislation that I deeply disagreed with, and then like so I've never really made a political protest piece outwardly, and I was like, no, for this one I feel like I really have to,
Yeah.
and like and all of those things were I guess pressure points where it was like it kind of gave me no out, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it just kind of felt like I'm not going to make a banger of like of dance music whenever like something horrible is happening and I have to process it. So it's like
Right.
and so it just you kind of go like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do something potentially weird, but I also kind of don't care. Like I
Yeah.
think the smartest thing that I did is I did not turn the comments off because I really wanted to just turn all the comments off and just kind of like let that material sort of exist outside of the overall thing. And then like keeping those
Yeah.
comments on was the smartest decision because the community is fucking incredible and the use of the curse word is mandatory here.
It is fucking mandatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am willing to bet that there will be heavy shit that we're all dealing with in 2026 as well.
What gives you that idea?
I don't know. Just nothing. Don't
Yeah.
look outside.
No, yeah.
And, for me, it's kind of a way to escape all of that and maybe make a banger if grandma dies in her honor in a way,
Yeah, that's
but I, the community, like you said about the leaving the comments on, because like there was even some rough moments in 2024, and it
oh
felt
yeah.
like the comments and us all sharing kind of the same sentiment. Yeah, so 2026 will get us through that as well.
I'm just gonna try to be on an optimistic side and say let's hope it all goes better than we expect. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So yeah,
Yeah, and trying to think of where to go right now because I have so many questions for you. The one that is like coming to mind right now is, how did you learn how to mix? Because your mixes are amazing.
geez, thanks. But by kind of by doing weekly beats is my actual answer. And what I mean by this is
Yeah,
that I've
yeah.
mixed work before, but the thing is like so okay, the usual process is that like I would make a song and then rarely I would put this into a DAW and would like draw some automation stuff and kind of figure things out. But the problem with that is that it when it happens rarely and you're kind of doing this like sort of piecemeal, you don't really develop like yeah you cannot develop those types of shortcuts and like there is no it's still magical and mystifying to you, right? And the whole point is just making it really mundane. So during my undergrad I worked at the music studio at Texas A&M University, and there were a
Mhm.
lot of people coming just going through like different students recording stuff. And that's when I was like, I knew Pro Tools back then, I forget which version, ancient one, early 2000s. And then like
Yeah,
I would mix like Christian rock, and then I would mix like dirty South hip hop, right? And it's just like,
yeah,
and during that time, you just kind of go like, yeah, okay, like it needs, this needs to be better, this needs to, this needs to be improved.
right.
But you also start developing like, yeah, I don't need to worry about any of those things because this is fine, right? And that's the
Mhm.
secret, I
Yeah,
think. So I've kind of realized after mixing a bunch of like art music, I guess, in school, also like during the later years, that once I started weekly beats again, I was like, I'm actually back to ground zero. Like I don't know
yeah.
what compressing my drums means anymore. I don't know how to like sort of how to deal with things. So I've spent it was kind of more front loaded. Like the first 13 weeks I've just tried a bunch of things where like how do I make the bass sort of sound better, and then like how do I EQ it, and then bought a bunch of Fab Filter plugins and just kind of
Nice.
went ham on those. Like I just use Fab Filter, EQ, Volcano, distortion, the Saturn distortion, and their compressor and limiter, and that's it. That kind of goes on everything. And then I just I try to do the best job that I can. I don't think my mixing is that great, actually. And I think it has a long way to go. But if there's one thing I miss about 2024, not doing weekly beats, is not mixing and mastering a whole bunch of tracks. Yeah. And then also like volunteering a lot. So like a friend that, whenever a friend would make would make something, just be like, hey, I'll mix this album for you. And then like I'll master it. So I
Right,
did that for Noggin, for Chipsomniac, which was his M8 uh, album of sort of chiptune kind of adjacent work. And I would do that, like for free, just to be able to like
right,
sort of
yeah.
take somebody else's stuff and just figure out how do you make it sound the best. I was really grateful to Emily at some point in time, who I think it was for the Raja, the Resident Alien remix, saying that it's like you just turn your friends up to 11. And I was like, I love this. I do turn my friends up to 11. Like that's exactly what I want to be known for. It's like I turn my friends up to 11.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, now I got to live
And
up to that.
so, is is it I mean, what is it about the reps? Is it just the like, trying different things, or just getting a better ear about, like you said, not touching the things that don't need to be touched, and then, like, I want to hear more bass, so I'm going to start there?
Yeah, it's actually so I do think that not needing to touch the things that don't need to be touched part is probably like 90% of what I would consider to
Yeah,
be sort of a
yeah,
success. Or like knowing how to do the minimum viable thing of like uh this sound is fine, but it's not, it kind of lost here. Let's just make the highs a little bit more prominent during this section when it gets muddy, but like not anywhere
Got it.
else. And then
Right.
also like you end up, I mean, I came up with a whole bunch of shortcuts too, because like Ableton now can create endless number of tracks. So this means that I very rarely automate as well. It's like if I need some, so like for the same bass line, I would create 3 tracks. And then I would put them.
Right.
It's like, so for the intro, the bass needs to be a little bit lower. Then for like the middle section, this is going to be the banging bass, and then for the ending, it's going to be low again. So you just track it on 2 or 3 different tracks, and then you just
Right.
configure the EQs and compression like how you want it to be, and all of a
That's
sudden you no
cool.
longer need to worry about stuff. And then like, yeah, it's just those types of things, you know. And it's like I don't really look at a lot of like folks on YouTube advertising workflows, like because
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's easier for me, I feel, to invent a workflow, quote unquote, even if that is
Mhm.
reinventing the wheel. I'll internalize it so much better than if
Yeah.
somebody is just like do this in a particular way. So I'm, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because then you have the whole journey of getting to that part and probably why they got there to in the first place, you know?
exactly. And because, yeah, if somebody gives you the solution and you don't know what the problem was in the first place, it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
difficult to then know, like, yeah, how the hell am I supposed to apply this? Because I don't know when to do this. And that's the
Yeah.
part where I kind of feel, and I think that art is critical for this, because I think that making art means that it's relatively safe. Like nobody is going to die if I make something wrong. Like no, I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
the worst case scenario is that somebody is going to say, "Oh, like I didn't like this," and that's fine. Like art
Yeah.
being harmless is like its paramount feature to me, because it means that it's the safe place where you can invent, learn, and like apply knowledge in extremely sincere ways without ever risking like I don't want engineers building bridges doing that, right? I definitely want them
Right,
to read
exactly.
books, but like
No,
musicians doing this, yeah,
I've been thinking a lot about this lately that it's like everyone talks about like, "Oh, you need to do more childlike play and, do these activities that are harmless." And I'm like, "What is more harmless than making music?" Like, literally nothing bad will happen if you do a weird sound or,
yes.
somebody might be like, yeah, that's not my thing," which is cool.
That's fine. Yes.
Yeah, it's not your
Like,
thing.
yeah. And in fact, that's great. That means that there's probably a lot of things that are not my thing that might become my thing later. And that's amazing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it would be a mistake to not talk about sound design along with your mixing because I think the sound design plays a lot into at least how I hear your mixes because there's such a wide range of sounds happening in a lot of your songs from like noise, bass, like one of the songs we're going to listen to like kind of like mechanical tape noises all the way to these like super sharp like digital kind of sound, so it's like the entire spectrum and not just in frequency but in like rhythm and like attack decay, like you got the whole mix in the mix, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, that's very kind of you to say this. I guess I like making sounds, and the I I don't know how to make sounds well. And what I mean by this is that if you ask me to make like a clarinet on the M8,
Right, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I know where to start, but I wouldn't make a good one. And then so
Mhm.
like meeting somebody like Ipaghost, that where it's like every single sound is handcrafted for every song, all using one synth, is like incredible. And it's like I don't have that skill. But
Yeah.
I also have never tried to develop that necessarily. So for me, it's always just you kind of pick things up, and like, you know, most things are boring, I think, when starting. So it's like the way that you find the boredom of like an empty page, right? It's like, is
Yeah.
that, I mean, my solution is just like scribble something that's odd. And then the moment that there is something
Mhm.
odd, that becomes like uh, a hook, so to speak. And then, and the funny thing about this is that like you make this one thing that's kind of weird, and it kind of explodes into the rest of the track, because it's like, well, yeah, can't really just take a, somebody else's drum kit and then like have that be okay if there's a weird
Yeah.
squeaky thing happening. So like, okay, so like now the drums need to get all like repitched weird, and then like, yeah. But having said that, I also feel that like a lot of it was, if it wasn't for Weekly Beats just constantly pushing of like, you got to make this happen this week, it's like
Mhm.
this terrifying moment of just like, I need to make something that I'm happy with, and I guess that's what I gravitate to,
Right.
is just weirdness. um
Yeah.
yeah.
And you posted some videos recently in, I believe, the Weekly Beats Discord of you doing
Yes.
some different sound design stuff, and you asked, "Should I do more of these?" And the answer is yes,
Okay.
because the things that you are trying and experimenting with, like, I am not there in M8 sound design land. So just watching like the one clip I saw, I was like, whoa, that, like, I had never even thought about going there and doing those things. And you really do get some very unique sounds out of the M8.
I mean, the video is a cheat, right? So I do want to point out that this wasn't a spontaneous thing. Like I had to rehearse it, because it's like, this is me kind of going back from the sound that I made, and I was like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
just kind of had this idea, like, what if I turn everything off, and then you just end up with a beep that's like two octaves apart or stuff like that. So beep 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 beep
Yeah.
kind of going on, and I sort of thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I can actually kind of like build the final sound from this particular thing? Yeah. Also, just really excited that I can record M8 very easily on the cell phone as opposed to like
Yes.
on the desktop.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's so
So
good. Yeah. Not
kudos
that
to
I've
Dirty
done
Wave.
anything with it, but I do want to make some videos at some point. But
You should.
I don't know that I have the knowledge to drop yet, but we'll see. And yes, I assumed that you weren't just like, immediately, I'm gonna go make this sound that, like, you know.
Yeah, that goes hard. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to make sure that, yeah, whatever. I'm awkward.
But I
Cool.
mean, I was not very familiar with your music, and you've kind of opened my ears to what's possible with like weird sounds. And I mean that in the best way.
No, that's
Like,
awesome. Yes, I know. That's music to my ears for sure. Uh, like,
because like you do a lot of interesting things with like melodic elements that you almost can't like make out the note, but they're kind of like rhythmic elements that
yes.
you're like almost like peeking around the corner of like, what note is that? And then it sort of like all comes together. Lots of just like unexpected, hard to determine if there is like true repetition going on, that like really keeps you interested in like what's happening, because it's kind of like, wait, my brain is trying to latch onto something that is like where I can get into groove, and then like you add like one element in, and then like boom, the groove is there, and you're like, oh shit, it all makes sense now.
Yeah. So, okay. The reason why I'm really partial to this, and why I see a huge compliment in the last thing that you said, is that like so there's like infinite, like this infinity of different musics in the world, and like it's like
Right.
some songs could not be less alike in any, like in instrumentation and delivery and aesthetics and everything else. So I kind of was just like, we use words like beauty and like we use happy and sad and everything else, but like music can be everything. And so like the word that I kind of settled on over the years was like, it just needs to be convincing. Like if it's screaming, it needs to be
Mm.
convincing screaming. Like like the coolest thing that you can make is when like somebody hears the track and they're like, yeah, duh, couldn't happen any other way. And it absolutely could. But like we all know that it could. But like when you hear the best of the best, then like the famous tracks, it's like from the opening chord all the way to the very end, you're just like, yes, 100%. More of this, please.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the part where like I think it doesn't matter if it's weird, doesn't matter if it's not weird, doesn't matter if it's like dainty and small and beatless, or like if it's massive and huge. Like the ability to convince is still seems to be something reserved
Mm.
for everybody. And that's the, yeah. So And then, I mean, I think that that's also helpful when trying something weird for the first time, where you're just like, well, shit, this doesn't have any melody or anything like that. Like this is now like the FFS, my protest track, which is just a buildup of noise. But it was like, well, so if I make noise that I think can't go louder, what do I need to do? I need to make it go louder, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
that's the only thing that you have when it's like a slab of sound. So like the only thing is just the stepwise more and more and more and more, and figuring out how to do this. And that, I think that becomes convincing, even if people are like, well, that's not my thing. They're still going like, I get it though, right? And that's the part
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Like this was intentional and I wouldn't hear it any other way.
right, I mean, yes, in the or like, and even if the intentional part applies to the making of the artifact as opposed to making music, like if somebody's like, I'm going to be wind chimes and I will be the most aimless thing in the world, it's like, yeah, you kind of have to probably work really hard not to have like a C major chord in there by accident, right? Even if you're being
Yeah.
random, because it needs to be sort of very unintentional sounding, but you need to be intentional about that unintentionality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tripping over my words.
How did you arrive at this style of music making?
Weekly beats. Like it's the
Okay.
answer is weekly beats. So I went to school. I was really burnt out at music making, like badly, because it's just a lot, and the further you get, the more hurdles there are, where you have to do
Mhm.
responsible graduate student behavior, but still produce creative work, and it sucks.
Right.
So for 5 years, I did nothing except for like various experiments. And my original vision for the project was actually inspired by this Czech avant-garde pop band or folk band called Dva. They made some video game soundtracks for
Alright.
Amanita Design. So they made a soundtrack for Botanicula and for a few other games. Anyway, I actually love their albums way more than their soundtrack work. And I kind of wanted this weird, folky, sing-songy, quasi jazzy, but still somewhat electronic thing. That's sort of what I was kind of trying to develop. And then Weekly Beat started, and I'm like, I have a week, so I just gotta pull out whatever it is that I have. And
Yeah.
so it's like there's been this weird thing where, like, at first it was just pulling out some of the ideas, or some of, like, there would be a drum loop that I would have that I recorded from, like, not even trying to make music, but I would record it from playing around with the new pedal that I got. And then it's just like, okay, great, let's build a song from that. And then like just try to figure it
Yeah.
out. So it all just like, I don't think I'm, what's the word? Diligent, not diligent, that I am organized enough to actually be able to sort of guide this progression through weekly beats in any way, especially given everything else that was happening at the time. So it was
Yeah.
just like, yep, let's try it and figure it out. And then if somebody likes something, it's like, oh, cool. And then like by the fifth or sixth week, Orange Drink is like, ilzxc is going to make a squeaky toy track again. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And then, yeah, so yeah, this journey of like completely accidental and like ignorant self-discovery, where you're just kind of do first and then ask questions later. um
Right. Like,
yeah,
pretty cut and dry, just experimentation and I guess looking for inspiration in a lot of ways, right?
yeah, yes, the I think that I kind of felt at some point in time that I was repeating myself too much, and that was another impetus for
Yeah.
the remix project, where I was like, if I start looking at other folks, like the music that they make, and if I touch something that I consider to be way more precious than any of the garbage that I make,
Right.
I have to kind of force myself to like either listen or analyze, or like basically just learn the inside and out of something else that is being done. And that was an awesome learning experience that I think also informed me a lot, but I don't think that I understood how much it informed me until like years after. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So it's kind of like when people are like, you should go make music in the style of this or this artist, but like picking from the community where we're already listening to music and being like, I really like this track. I think I'm gonna like remix it and like put my spin on it.
Yes, but I got to be completely honest with you. But the my spin part was, I was not even like on my radar. I really wanted to work with stuff that people made that I genuinely found inspiring and awesome. And like every selection of mine, and like I did very few remixes based compared to what I actually wanted, but the whole thing was just to find an excuse to like for a week or more to dive deep into like how was this made,
Got it.
because like I don't use FL Studio, but I had to kind of learn it well enough to be able to navigate
Yeah.
iPaGhost's personable computer, or I didn't know anything about Nanoloop mobile at the time, but I downloaded Hishib's track and then was able to like look at the look at its organization. So all of it was
So
just like
you're like dissecting these songs and then being like, "How did they make this?" And
yes,
then, like, I I guess putting your spin on it is a different way, but, like, making your creation in a similar way. And we'll
yes,
get
like
in I wanna talk a little bit more specifically about certain remixes. We're gonna listen to your Emily remix later,
yeah,
but I wanted to shift real quick to 2024 and talk more about your, like, live set work.
right, sure,
Because that you mentioned to me when we were chatting before or this week gearing up for the show that you didn't release a lot of songs 2024 because you spent a ton of time doing live sets or preparing for live sets.
yep. I yes, I think I played 4 shows in 2024, and I kind of went from scratch, right? So I went from like
Mhm.
doing weekly beats. Then in 2023, I took a break from music because I was pretty burnt out, and I was also just
Yeah.
trying to improve like my health. So I worked out a lot and stuff. And then one of my friends who like enjoyed my weekly beats told me to come out to Seattle, like community events where electronic music is played, and we have a few of those, and we're really lucky here. So I came out to Modbang in January of 2024, which is every last Tuesday of the month at this place called Four Bees Tavern. There is a showcase that is used to be run by EasyBot, who now kind of took a back seat, and there's a bunch of other people
Okay.
running it. So I showed up, and then like that day or that night, I got introduced to EasyBot, and who was like, "Yep, I'll put you on the program in May." And I was like, "Oh snap! Like now I have to prepare." And like so, yeah, I guess if there is a theme to this conversation, is that I plan for nothing and just sort of stumble through life in a like get through
Well,
musical adventures.
you put a flag in the sand and you're like, "Yep, I'm gonna get ready for this date."
Yes, and then around some other just a little time after that, there was another friend of mine who like said, "Hey, I'm putting together the show at this other place in Seattle the week before Modbang." And asked me if I wanted to play, and I thought, sure, why not? I'll say yes. Well, that was dumb because I instead of preparing one show, having okay, so I haven't played like fun electronic music live since like 2005 or something. So it's
Yeah.
been a while. And then like so now I have all of this like weekly beats repertoire, and I was like, sure, I can do like an artsy show for this friend, and then like a beats oriented show for
Oh, I thought you were
for
gonna
EasyBot.
reuse the same show.
No, so instead of
No,
doing
you're gonna
30
make it
minutes, I
hard.
did an hour. Yeah, and then like except for the Jim Mac remix, which was like in both, and because like the BPM
Got
fit
it.
and it kind of worked. So and I like maybe that was dumb, but like I was also glad I said yes because like I did not know the kinds of problems that I would see, like corrupted Octatrack card, and like losing some of the work, and then just like not
Oh,
really
man.
understanding like how do you like yeah, I think that yeah, so like I was just preparing all of the weekly beats material, and then like most of my shows for like throughout the year were just doing weekly beats material until the November show where I have the 2 tracks that are on the 2024 weekly beats page.
Yeah.
So yep, and it was just trying to figure out like how do I do? So you mentioned lack of repetition in my music, which is intentional, but it also makes it really hard to play because I don't really have good loops to loop because of the way that things are structured, or at least my
Right.
at the time, like my brain was too sort of like, no, this works this way, and
Hard to
then
loop polyrhythms.
yes, sometimes. So like yeah, so I just ended up kind of like putting together these wave files of like all of the sort of sections of a song, and then like tracking them across like a single octatrack project, so that I can press play and the whole thing sort of plays at once, and then I can mute and provide effects for different things. And I also had my guitar pedals, where I can press Q and send. I basically, any stem can be either playing inside of the octatrack and processed with octatrack effects, or sent out through the pedal chain before being returned back into the octatrack, which
I
also
got
meant
it.
that like I could make some things glitch or like apply a filter, but only to a few
Yeah.
voices, which was like, and then, and then a whole lot of it went into like the theatrics of it, because like the hardest part about a lot of electronic music is you just kind of press play, and then like so much of it plays by itself that it becomes really difficult
Right.
to figure out how to do that. Yeah, that was a journey. Lots of mistakes, but really valuable ones. So
Does does that make you want to continue doing live shows?
yeah, I've been. I mean, I'm signed up to play Modbang in November. I played it in
Awesome.
January. Yeah, just played a show called Wayfest, with Mikey 303, Null Sleep. So that's at least three weekly beats folks in under one roof. That was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, like the I'm definitely hoping to like get. So I've been getting faster in terms of both material preparation, and also like it goes back to the comment that I made about mixing, where you just kind of go like, I don't need to mess with this, or it's like I no
Mhm.
longer need to like. I very rarely run bass through my pedals, with a handful of exceptions, which means that I can probably just like bake that in with the drums, which then will make it a lot easier to compress it as a whole thing if there were some sidechain effects or something. So it's like you can do
Right.
less and yet have more, because you've planned ahead a little bit and you kind of like know what it's doing. So it's all just a learning process, and you kind of figure things out, and eventually you kind
Yeah.
of go like been doing it wrong for two
Well, because
years, you know?
I would like to put together some sort of live set. What advice would you have given yourself back in,
Hmm.
2024 about, prepping a live set?
Um, limit the scope. So just make a track list, realize that track list, it's going to be hard. There will be some problems that you don't foresee, but see that through. It's just like weekly beats. It's like weekly beats the live set, where you just sort of figure out how to play whatever it is that you want, and don't sweat anything. Like my biggest mistake is like trying to like give myself all of the stuff to do. And the whole point, I would actually say, is like just do the minimal amount of stuff that convinces you,
Right.
and then after that grow from that as much as possible. You'll break this advice, because that's the human nature, and that's the art ego and
You're like,
everything
"No,
else.
I have to fiddle with a million things while I'm up there."
And but the truth is, like, it's I still have to fiddle with a million things. I just only do that in a track or two, right? And then like,
Yeah.
and those are usually the centerpieces. Like it's really fun performing my closer, which is Carousel, because I have to do a lot for that one, and it's like it grew and it changed, and it's now kind of a different song, which is awesome. But the
That is cool.
but like I think that's remarkable, considering that like the stems have remained the same since the very beginning, since I've done them in
Mm.
like in whatever it would be like March or April of last year. But because the pedals changed, my interaction with the pedals changed, and the nature of the project changed. Like
Yeah.
it now goes into crazy noise at the end, and that's just because I got Chase Bliss onward, and it can do that. So
Nice.
yeah.
So,
um
like, that's pretty cool to know, like, the base material is the same, but literally your performance has completely evolved it.
Yes, like it's and I do rehearse a lot, because I'm awkward as enough as it is, and like I feel like you have to give people a decent show. And then like I watched Orange Drink sort of perform, and I sort of thought like I want to be able to do that, and I can't do that right now. And then
Yeah.
like it's actually I'm glad that there are videos, because I can see like the difference between like the first and the third show that I played is pretty astronomical in terms of my stage presence and stuff. And only because
Yeah.
a friend of mine sort of said, "Oh man, when you look up and smile, like that looks good." And I was like, "I'm just going to look up and smile no matter what happens. If I screw up, I'm going to look up and smile, right? If I do something good, I'm going
Yeah.
to look up and smile. That's great." Yeah.
Make it
So
convincing.
exactly. That's the thing. Even if you don't believe in yourself, it's like it's gonna be all right. Like it's gonna like sound
Oh,
will
that's
come out,
great.
somebody will come up and will say something. So yeah. Um,
Well, I think we should start listening to some music.
let's do it.
Let's start with 2022 week 6 Embrace.
Let's do that.
All right. I really like that like squeaky, like almost mouse noise.
Yeah. 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 Accident. Complete accident.
All right.
That Yep, that's analog rhythm playing like me hand playing the drums into the Chase Bliss blooper pedal, and then after that, hating what I made, and then just like instead of erasing it or overdubbing it, I was like, what happens if you like turn the
Oh
pitch way up?
shit.
So you like turn the pitch way up, and you're like, okay, that's kind of nuts.
Got
And then
it.
it's like, what if I just started messing around with those things? So it's like a bunch of weird tape effects that Chase Bliss blooper has, which was like all just manipulated live and then like re-recorded, overdubbed ad nauseum. And then like if the final whatever the kick and snare sort of on the drums is just like me going like it kind of sounds like this groove, right? And then like playing it with fingers, no sequencing. And then I pulled that out, and then I did need to fix the timing in post in Ableton with some warping, but like all of that squeaky texture stuff is just the drum machine manipulated by a guitar pedal. That's it. Like I was surprised it did that. I
Wow.
didn't plan it.
That is
So
awesome. And then I would say uh maybe your signature, but like the like dome like you can't, it's hard to predict like when it's gonna come, and then you've got this like squeaking noise in your ear. Like it's borderline creepy in a dark room, but it's also like just a fascinating use of sound and texture, and like something that I'd never really heard before.
that's I really appreciate just that's just so kind. Like I thought when I made it that this was that it all sounded very kind of academic-y and not good. And then the community response to this was like several people pointed out that it like there's cuteness to this. And I was like, I couldn't hear it when I was making it that way at all. And then like now that they said it, I can't unhear it from that point. And this is not something that like yeah, and I did play it at the first ever show, and I kind of think that I want to play that one more out because it's so weird, and yet it kind of goes hard but is also gentle. So like, yeah,
Yeah, convincing. It's like, yeah, when I first listened to it, I was like I mentioned at the top of the show, like my ears were open to what's possible with like unconventional sounds and rhythms. So like really, really cool track. And yeah, cool to hear like how you made some of those sounds. And I always like to say some of the best soup is made when something falls in that you didn't notice or realize, or like it's kind of the same with music.
Yes, and the remarkable part about I think I really wanted to mention, like, I chose that track because it's the first speed trash that I've ever made. I was working on the track that I did, I think, the following week, which was called Anxious, and I couldn't complete it in time. I was like, I don't want to do this without like this one section that I wanted to
Yeah.
figure out. So on a Sunday, I was like, all right, I have this beat. I have no idea what to do with it. And it was just like, it all happened in like, not just one day, but like being on the West Coast sucks for weekly beats, by the way, because it's like during that time they're due at 4 p.m. Right. So if you like
Yeah.
if you wake up at 9, by the time that I have my coffee and I'm remotely functional by 10, I don't have that much time to do
Yeah, it's a
this. So
small
I
window to hit.
just, yep. So just kind of threw that thing together for the first, like, and then like I was borderline embarrassed when I posted it, but I listened to it in my car later on that day, and I sort of thought, this is pretty all right given like this short amount of time. And then like the feedback is one of those things where I was like, oh, I don't know anything about music making, because this is clearly like, yeah, like there was this engagement that I didn't see with other stuff that I've made, and I was like, oh, I have a lot to learn. So I just, yeah. So
Yeah, like I'm just going back and reading some of the comments. Horatio, romantic, whack. I like squeak.
yeah, I love Horatio, like just
He's great.
100%. The let me see the yes. I should have read
Yeah,
some of
and
the
then
comments
Q
because there
Rosh.
was
This is a beautiful collab of cute sounds. Love the vivid textures. There's a sound in here that reminds me of a track I made 30 years ago called "Lick the Balloon." That's great.
yeah, I
Yeah,
could not be friends with Q Rush. So like I was still just sort of discovering everybody during that time, and I'm pretty sure
yeah,
that I
yeah.
went back and
6
listened to
weeks
like
in, you know?
everything Q Rush made. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
the
Cool
yes.
stuff.
Thanks.
All right, well, let's keep it rolling, and we're gonna do a remix 2022 week 31, the Wangus Dunk Tank remix. I love this
Yeah.
one. Here we go.
Thanks.
All right, that is a banger remix of a Wangus track, Dunk Tank, and you have to go listen to the original as well. I am really curious to hear about your remix process. Like, I think you got the M8 files from Wangus. So, like, that's kind of a different way of starting a remix of like really dissecting and looking at like how he built the original song. Yeah, tell me more about that process and like where do you start when you like get a file and you're like, all right, I'm gonna remix this. Like, I have no idea where to start.
Uh, I usually start by mixing, not remixing, just mixing. So whatever it is I would get, I would figure out how to get a multi-track from it, which sometimes is impossible. That's
Right.
like, but in this case, so I just like rendered all the stems, threw them into Ableton, and then just like went through and just listened first, because that way, when I would go back to the M8, I would figure out like, okay, I have no idea how this works or that works, and then like, yeah, so it's like this sort of breadcrumb trail that starts with listening to individual elements and figuring out how it was all put together. And then after that, it was the I mean, with that one, I knew I wanted to make the chip lead into a bass of some sort, and then like
Mhm.
I settled on brass because it seemed kind of brassy, I guess, to some extent.
Mhm.
And then the ingenious part of Dunk Tank is that there is I forget which note it is, but there's a note that is like a quarter sharp. So it's like just one note that is out of tune, and that's what makes it
Oh,
kind
all
of
right.
go. Yeah, and that's why it
Got
feels
it.
so off kilter, and like it just kind of goes way harder than it's supposed to. And so, yep. So I started with the brass, and then like little by little, just tried to figure out how to take individual elements, and then like, oh yeah, I did not copy over the project. So meaning like I started a brand new one and
You
I
started from
would do things.
scratch. Yeah.
And yes, so I had to like open up Wangus's stuff. I still probably have the pictures on my phone somewhere of like me taking pictures of all of the patterns, because I only had one
Yeah.
image at the time. And then like after that, coming back into my other project and then like reprogramming particular things. Uh like yeah, trying to make sure I don't make
Like,
a mistake.
what are you trying to keep the same, and what are you trying to change up?
Oh, virtually every note in my project, with the exception of the drums, has been in the sorry, with the exception of drums and the bass, everything else is completely based on Wangus's original patterns. Like, and that was very intentional.
Got it.
That was supposed to be
Got
so.
it.
Like, there is that
So it's like
weird
the same melodies, but different sounds in a
different,
way.
but yes, and like the reason why, so I was really excited because there is this like, sort of like a background wonky synth that does these sort of fills, and that is the pattern that is played by the dot matrix printer, by that weird
Got
glitchy sound
it.
at the
Yeah, yeah,
beginning.
yeah. Mhm.
And so, and what I like, I mean, I felt particularly proud of the fact that Wangus recognized this in the comments, and like there is like this, it tells a story. The comments do of uh, Angus listening to the song and then just being like, "Oh snap, this is mine too!" Like, so is this, and like getting excited. And I was very stoked because I don't think that most folks would be able to tell. But it's like if you make a remix and you touch somebody's work and like you do something with it, their ability like to just be like, "Oh, I understand what you did," is the coolest feeling.
That
So
is really cool. I'm just going back and reading his comments now. Um, I actually screamed quietly to myself at one point on first listen just magic hearing something so closely familiar but totally foreignized. I mean, that's a really great way of putting it.
I, I, yeah, I'm very grateful for that comment. Actually, yeah,
Yeah, that's it. That's a really cool way to do a remix, where you're like keeping everything the same, but sort of like switching out your own sound design. Uh, Very cool and very great results. And like I mentioned when we were talking on Discord, like you started with a banger. Like you picked some great source material because everyone needs to go listen to the original Wangus, and it's just really cool to hear them side by side and hear what you did to it. And I was also saying while we were listening to it that gets chopped out. This is another one where like the first 48 seconds, I think, it's sort of like there's a rhythm. I'm trying to pick up on it, like I was talking about earlier. And then the bass comes in at like 48 seconds, and then it's like, oh shit, it's grooving now. That's so cool.
yeah. I mean, some of the credit has to go to Wengus because like there are, I would never come up with some of the patterns or some of that writing, and that's another really cool
Yeah,
thing. And
yeah.
like, I will say that with that material, it was in some ways way harder than other remixes because I kind of feel that we are uh, somewhat similar, or at least there is some similarity between the sort of making banging kind of dance adjacent music. And so I kind of didn't want to like I was sort of struggling because I was just like, well, this already is kind of close, so I don't want it to be seen as lazy. So I kind of felt like I had to push myself into like
Yeah,
some weirder sound design things and try to figure out how to make it into just
right.
feel like a different track because I think they are different. I'm another friend pointed out how like they seem to not really overlap in terms of what like why they work, but they both work independently. And I was like, yes, this is like that's a big deal.
I
Uh,
I 100% agree with that because I was surprised to hear you say that you started from like all the same notes essentially and like overlaid your own sounds because they do have like a different feel in different places.
yep, thanks. Like I just want to say thanks. That's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. Everyone go check out the original as well and play them both on repeat. Uh, all right, we're gonna move on to a 2024 song, Week 46, Edges. Here we go. All right, that
I'm not
was
speaking too.
Edge's. Oh, what were you gonna say? We
I
can
was
we
just
can
wondering.
chop it.
I was just wondering if I'm speaking too fast.
Oh no, I think you're fine. Yeah. Um. All right, that was Edge's. Another banger. Tell me about this one.
Right. So, okay, a sketch of this one in form of just the drums existed like in way before Weekly Beats, and it was the way that I do a lot of my drum patterns is that I beatbox them poorly into
Okay.
my phone, and then I don't quantize them. So I take it. I kind of spent a year doing this, which is that's probably weird, but like I was interested in like how my body reasons about rhythm in a way that I can't articulate with my mind. So intellectually, I cannot tell you what the delays are between like all of the different hits.
Right.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to record myself like beatboxing poorly into the phone with no metronome. And then in Ableton, I can like just
OG humanized setting.
that. Yeah, exactly. The yes, the anti AI kind of way
Right.
of going. So and like there's like it all sounds really bad, right? Like it's not something that I would necessarily show folks. But this was the first time where like uh, I took one of those things and then like I layered every single one of my squishy drum sounds with like a real drum machine sound, and out came a pattern that I was like I would have never ever made it this way, and like this is
That
actually
is
awesome
so
because it
cool.
swings. And like I couldn't finish it into a song or anything like that. And then like I kind of meant to do it during Weekly Beats. In fact, I was working on it and my SD card died. My or my M8, and I
Oh.
lost that one that I was going to work through. But a fun fact: sharing your M8 bundles is really beneficial for your mental health because I lost. That's the only thing I lost was just that week stuff. Everything else was preserved
Oh, wow.
because of Weekly
Wow.
Beats. Like download M8 stuff here. Uh,
Nice.
yeah. Anyway,
Nice.
so that thing sort of existed, and then like when I revisited, I completely did away with the beat, and the final thing that you hear is my take on what that beat would sound like if I just programmed it in primarily. But it was still informed by all of these other experimentation that I was doing of stuff that kind of didn't sound as repetitive or as like mechanical as a lot of electronic music sounds. So
Got it. So you didn't end up using the, like, full humanized beat, but you sort of, like, recreated some rhythmic epiphanies that came out of that.
exactly, and like I the reason why the reason why the track was just kind of going to not never be done is because it was really difficult to develop this. Like once you have something with all of this micro timing that is done, like you can't loop it very easily, and like if
Mhm.
because it all just kind of starts going a certain way. So going back to the drawing board and going like, okay, like we know what this could sound like, how can we just program this now is a lot
Got
easier
it.
because that means that the making variations is a lot saner, and like other things are a lot more manageable than just doing with this like raw drum like
Yeah.
beatboxed voice. By the way, the drums in Wangus remix are also beatboxed originally too.
Oh, wow, alright.
Yeah, like
Damn. I might
most
have
of
to
them are.
try
Yeah,
this
yeah. It's
and not let
like
anyone listen to the beatbox version.
that's. I mean, I'm like,
You're never gonna be
yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm gonna sample this in, yeah."
No, I like. I mean, I maybe in Discord I can share some of the like less embarrassing files, but no, I would not want to show
That's a
this. This
really,
this.
really cool process. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, cool. We're gonna keep on going, and we're getting into some of my picks now, and we're gonna do another remix since there's remixes aplenty, and they're really cool. This is 2022, week 47, NF
Oh yeah.
Groove X. Yeah,
Awesome.
let's go. was the NF remix. More crazy sound design stuff going on there. We were just talking, and I need to download the MA bundle and like go dissect like how you made some of this stuff. It's really cool. Tell me more about how this one came together. Another remix.
Yeah. So enough was like an early on, whenever I was just posting stuff, and Neff had some really kind words about my drum programming specifically, and I was very grateful that like Inef had questions, and Inef knew about me beatboxing my drums before anybody else did, like by a long shot.
Oh,
I
okay.
reached out to Inef in Discord, and we chatted, and I also just deeply admired Inef's very sort of like careful M8 tracks like that where like not a single sound would be out of place and everything was just super tight. And I wanted to remix an F just out of gratitude and just out of my enjoyment of their music. Well, the coolest thing about the Inef is that their M8 projects are nothing like nobody else works that way. They are
Oh,
organized into so like there is no sequence for the song. Instead, there is a bunch of like islands where patterns do weird things, and then they like hop over to the next island, which I've never seen before. And no, like
whoa.
it's remarkable. Like it's one of those things where like looking at the source material, I was like, holy cow! Like it would never occur to me to structure things this way, and that's really wild. And the reason why it's sampleless is because I spoke with Inef and I was asking, would it be okay to share the bundle after I was done? And Inef mentioned that they're not sure about the what would be the permissions, whatever the copyright for some of the samples
Right.
being used. And similar thing happened with Jim Mack's remix too, where Jim Mack said, "I have no idea where that piano is from," and I was like, "I'll just re-record exactly the piano sample, and then it'll be different." So like that's so easy. And
Mhm.
so the idea with an F was like, I was like, well, I'm just going to get rid of all the samples and like try to recreate them as best as I can. And that one was kind of mostly a sound design exercise because there were Wangus and Ipoghost were the main sort of primary people making every single sound from scratch. And I kind of thought I want to try the same thing.
Yeah.
And if I'm forgetting somebody else who's obvious, I'm terrified that I will forget one of my contemporaries who but yeah, it's like, yep. So I just kind of tried to put it together based on like, my ability at the time. And it was, yeah, I was afraid. And like the only cheat there, quote unquote, is using the microfreak for the paraphonic like note overlaps so that this, otherwise I would run
Got
out
it.
of tracks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, Ipago said
That's
nice kid.
cool.
So yeah, I was excited about it.
That's and that's really cool to be recognized for your beats and then have someone, uh, ask you with someone with more experience, like, "Dude, how are you making that?" That's like that's what everyone wants, right?
Yeah, that's I like what's it I had a conversation also with like Llama and I think a few other folks where it was like anytime you open somebody else's M8 project, like I don't know about you, but I always feel stupid. Like I look at the M8 project that somebody else made and I was like, oh, this is ingenious. Like they're doing all this cool stuff. And then like Llama said is like, yeah, that just happens anytime you look at something that somebody else has made. And I was like, oh, okay. So you feel stupid looking at other people's projects, like, or like somebody like Disposable Planet, or like
Yeah.
any of the other like folks that are just incredible amateurs in Weekly Beats.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to know 'cause, I'm sure looking at other people's stuff, I'd feel like an idiot. My favorite M8 meme, though, is the M8 with a bunch of islands, and it's got the Island Boys, like, superimposed on it. That's my
Nice.
favorite one. Yeah,
That's a good one. Cool.
I do love the Island Boys in all its irony.
Yeah,
Okay, we're gonna continue down the remix land.
let's do it.
I don't know if I said that right, or down the remix road. And we're going to listen to Emily's original song, In the
Nice.
Violence. and then we'll come back and chat about that one, and then play the remix of it. So you can hear both one after another, and we'll come back and talk about like when you first heard the song, like your approach to remix it. So here we go.
Yeah.
All right, so that was Emily's song, and uh an amazing track. I believe there's probably some JWH in there playing guitar, but this was back when he was just a Weekly Beats assistant. He wasn't actually doing Weekly Beats. But amazing track, the vocals on this, like the rhythm, a prime specimen to remix. Uh what is your thought process like when you hear this song and you're like, I want to remix this? Like, walk me through that whole thing. I know we kind of did that already, but I'm still curious from a different vantage point. Like, what do you do?
No, for sure. There were three vocal tracks that I remixed, and all three were also terrifying because voice is something that is well, we relate to voice like just there's good reason why so many songs have voice in them. And so
Mhm.
there is something very immediate and something that is, I don't think that there are any rules about whether or not you're allowed to process voice or not process voice. But I do feel that there is a certain artistic identity that, like, if if with Wangas, I could just be like, I'll take this synth pattern and make it into a brass sort of instrument, and I
Yeah.
would not have a second sort of a moment of doubt. With Emily's work, somebody whose music I deeply admire, and yeah, whose artistic output is just incredible. It's one of the things that is very, what's the correct term? I felt like it would be more difficult to forgive myself if I were to screw this up in a particular way. So all of a sudden there was a failure condition of, like, if the voice doesn't come
Yeah,
through
yeah.
in a particular way, then that means that it's a problem. So I got the stems from Emily, if I recall correctly, and I was originally going to do it the way that I usually do it, which is like I do a mix of the track and then try to figure out some things. But instead, I ended up just kind of falling off the deep end in terms of trying to figure out how do I treat the voice without messing it up and without screwing
Mhm.
things up. And I believe that the winning combination was Maris Hydra, which is a harmonizing like pitch shifter. So you have like multiple, like you can specify the key, and then you can specify some intervals for a particular voice. So instead of a single note, it would become a chord, which was interesting. And then there was also this dream-like quality to a lot of Emily's work in the first place. So I think it was Microcosm. I know I wrote it in the track, but for some reason it doesn't show up for me. Anyway, ultimately doesn't matter. So ran the voice through guitar pedals, and then at some point in time there was a version that I'm pretty sure I shared with Emily that was like an a cappella remix of just voice processing with nothing else.
Mm.
And then, but insecurity kicked in, and then and kind of at the last minute I sort of figured out I think it would be cool with like a weird beat. And it's another one I think of either completely sampleless or almost sampleless, with the exception of the voice, where all of
Right.
the sounds were just kind of made and were made to be a little more distorted than than I usually would. Just kind of, yeah. So that was the approach, was like to start with the voice, really make sure that I knew what I was doing with the voice, and that was a learning
Right.
experience. And actually all three of the vocal remixes have been that, like have had Roger the Resident Alien and the Sad Infamy Sings. Like, I felt extremely afraid and insecure about touching somebody's voice and messing it up in a particular way. So yeah.
Understandable. Yeah. Especially Emily's voice.
Yeah.
Great singing voice.
and
Well, let's
and
hear that version and then come back and talk about it.
yeah.
Here we go. The remix. All right, that was the remix. I think most notable is there's like a choir of Emily's. Like you
Yes,
took
because
those tracks and like really layered them and harmonized them in the best way possible.
yes, intentionally, because more Emily means better better times for everyone. So yeah,
Exactly.
100%. So
Yeah. And it's it's hard to tell. I would need to listen to them back to back more, but is it like the same, like similar to the Wangus remix of like I replaced all of the elements in the same sort of like phrases? This one sounds like rearranged a bit.
no, it very like a lot rearranged, and part of it also was the I think that there were a couple of remixes where I was just really nerding out about some things like Ghosts and Noggins, where they were more like recreations than remixes because there was something interesting about the track that was interesting to me, and so I kind of
Mhm.
felt like, yeah, I needed to push myself into this sort of different thing, and then yeah, and so I kind of at first it was going to be like I recall specifically just thinking like I'll need to figure out what to do about the like those guitars because I really like them as well. And then I ended up just kind of veering off into a completely different direction just by focusing on voice and then wanting to not harmonize the voice with other musical sounds. Like it's like Emily's
Right.
perfect as is, and then like have the voice shine while other things are doing whatever sort of rhythmic things that are done. And I like that there is this gnarly juxtaposition between like Emily and whatever
And
like
the like
little
nasty rhythms.
yeah yeah so
Yeah. Yeah, so the vocals and like the layering and the different harmonies you were making kind of became like the centerpiece, and then you were like, all right, I'm now that I've got these like vocal pieces, I can sort of like layer on some rhythms and make it interesting. So more of a like further away from the original remix. This feels like much harder to me than like, all right, take Wangus's track and like replace a bunch of sounds like that. I'm like, yeah, I could do that and come out with something. Maybe I won't like it, but like I could do that. This is much more difficult to like take the sounds, reimagine them, but then you're still sort of like like touching back to the original, not only for the vocals, but like the rhythmic elements. Like your rhythms aren't the same, but the rhythms in the original like really stand out as part of it.
yes, you said an interesting word which is like harder, and like I'm kind of trying to figure out how I feel about the challenge and the difficulty, because I think that I mean part of it was yes, like there's definitely a challenge in dealing with the voice, but I think that it's just all a different kind of insecurity, right? It's like you either feel insecure about this thing or the other thing,
Yeah,
or at least
yeah,
for me, that's the way that it is. So, um, I, I, s- I- the reason why it's a little bit easier is that once the due diligence was done for like vocal processing, after this, like after hearing the Emily choir, I was like, all right, I now understand what my role has been, and I also know that this is Emily's voice that is like perfect on this particular track, and it's amazing, and so I am completely secure now in this way that there
got it.
is the like it's a thing, right? It's like this is a check mark. So I screw it up? Absolutely, I can. There's still like bad things that can happen, but comparatively speaking, like there is no longer anxiety of the empty page. There's no longer anxiety of like that I'm going to screw up this critical component. Instead, you can just like kind of go like, okay, now let's execute on giving it a different mood than just voice by itself, like
Yeah.
and then yeah, and that's that.
So then at that point, it's sort of, do you feel like it's build more of like building a song from scratch with some bones and ideas from the original?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and I actually think that yes, and that bothered me in a way because I did the same thing for the Roger the Resident Alien remix, which is also vocal based, and I So because of this, I sort of thought like, no, I need to actually engage with the original material for the final remix that I did with Sad Infamy Sings, another really remarkable musician. So with their work, I just wanted to be more in like a producer seat, but keep the song as close to the original as possible. So like,
Got it.
yeah, yeah,
So there's like kind of a range of like using the song as a template and like reimagining some parts of it, and then all the way to this remix that is more of like a I'm gonna take some very important pieces that I don't want to screw up and
yeah,
like reimagine a world where those pieces can kind of live in.
yes, that's the exactly.
That's I mean that's a a range of remix styles, approaches, I guess, that I guess you develop from doing a bunch of remixes.
Yeah, it's weekly beats. Like everything comes back to weekly beats. Like it's like because any particular approach like also just gets old after a few weeks, right? And it's like if you're in
True,
the
true.
grind of doing this, you just kind of go like, okay, well, I haven't done this yet, and then you just kind of try.
Yeah, that's really cool. And
Thanks.
really cool to hear the results. And like it's one thing to do a remix of, you know, a famous song, but I think there's just something cooler about doing a remix of like the Community, a Friends song. It's so much more meaningful, and I guess there's like some sort of like just attachment to knowing that like your friend made these songs, or even if it's just a, you know, an internet friend that you listen to their music every week. There's just like something a little extra that it's from them.
Yes, I also feel that there is a certain. I'm going to use the word intimacy, and but what I mean is the intimacy to the like being able to get stems from somebody, where it's
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
like there's a greater like you can also download Lady Gaga stems, I would assume, but it's like it doesn't
Right.
hit
Yeah.
the same way because like I know what how I would feel if I were to give somebody my stems, right? In like in
Yes.
a certain way, and that and so there's a I think yeah because I have to tell you I don't really remix like popular music and I don't really have that much of an interest in that. I'm
Hmm.
you know I'm interested in remixing people in my community, so like it's just I owe two remixes right now, like one for Jim Mac and one for somebody in the mod band community, but like I need to get cranking on those, but yeah, like I think that it's really cool to like have the friendship connection and then have a dialogue with somebody, because you can also start saying like this is really cool how you did this, like or like get some ideas that you would never think of because like just as an example, when I was looking at the Hiship's Monitor Serve, the first remix that I've made, it's a nano loop mobile track. And like I didn't know that it can have like a stereo and mono mode. And one of the effects is that there would be the same pad, but one would be set to mono and the other one would be set to stereo, and then kind of playing together. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I can totally do that on the M8. It's just my brain wouldn't go that way if it wasn't for looking at something where,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
like and that's the part that like I mean the same thing with like looking at Emily stems and like looking at the guitar sort of parts and then just like understanding how it was made. Yeah, it hits differently because it's just becomes part of the greater dialogue that I think that we have, because you know there's individual sort of discussions on weekly beats of like you know somebody commenting on the song or like leaving gifts and stuff like that, but there's also like a longer engagement of just like spending a year with somebody and
Oh,
like
totally.
following
Yeah.
them and like listening to them all the time, and then you get to hear them overcome you know certain musical like you know barriers or fears or something else, and then you also see them like deliver things that like that are incredible, and they're like and it's different because it's not about an absolute good of music or something like that. It's about the
Yeah.
fact that you've like you witness somebody sharing a very very personal moment of like growth
Right.
and development that is, I mean, that is genuinely intimate, like that nobody gets to know this,
Yeah.
like the most loved ones don't get to know this because they don't listen to every single thing in the same way, and they don't
Yeah.
like, and that's the, by the way, I think that's a good thing because like loved ones have a bunch of other issues of mine to deal with. But
Yes.
like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that's why it's maybe so easy to connect with this community because, like you just mentioned, you're spending a year listening to things that people are creating, maybe intimate songs. I mean, I think early on, every song for me was intimate because you feel like you're sharing some piece of you and you get over that after a while. But,
Mhm.
I would call a lot of Emily's works very like sensitive, just like there's a lot of emotion baked in. And I think when you are, kind of inside this community and getting to know people on this level, from far distances, that people that you've never met in person, it does hit different than just like any old person on the internet.
Yes, and yes, the I think there is subtlety to Emily's work in particular, where there is the surface, and usually, like if you read the sort of like what the song is about, or you read the lyrics, there's kind of like the first layer to it. Then, like if you listen to it, and especially if you come back and you listen to it, or like especially if you're like listening to your weekly beats at work on rotation, and then like this Emily
Yeah.
track comes in, so you're not immediately in this like mode of reading what the song is about. The
Right.
depth of that stuff, like the depth of her work is particularly just like haunting in a way, because it's like sad things through which happiness shines, and then like dreamlike things that also become nightmares in a weird way. And it's really
Hmm.
really really remarkable to see that level of sort of depth kind of emerge. But you have to listen to it multiple times, you have to put yourself in a situation where like you experience that over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, I did the same thing with like Orange Drinks. Apparently, I've been wrong. Like that song has been on loop for like
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
like so many weeks. And then also like just Sad Infamy Sings, Fetal Face, His Sheep, very just like there's a lot of folks whose music I think has this depth of and like it's kind of, I don't know, awe inspiring to be in a community of people that are like processing all sorts of stuff, but they're also making some pretty incredible things that like bang and inspire
Yeah.
and like and jerk a tear at the right moment in time. That's the part that is really really cool to me.
Yeah.
That's why I love the community. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great community and welcoming. I only did weekly beats for 1 year, and now I'm like talking to all these OG weekly beats people that have way more experience than me, and it's so cool to be able to do that and share samples with people and just share what we're making and know that other people are listening to it. Like that's
Yes,
huge.
I I have to say that like I think that the health of a community is probably directly proportional to how the established like elder folks treat the newcomers. And like because
It's
like
true.
if
It's true.
and and I don't know of a better one than weekly beats period. Like I don't know of any like Discord communities where where there is no sort of snideness to it. And like I'll share the
Yeah.
story. Like can I tell a story real quick? Is that, do we have
Oh,
time?
you can,
Okay.
yeah.
So so in music school I had to go to a bunch of like departmental shows, and like because I was a composition major and you have to understand like the repertoire of every instrument or whatever. So I went to the percussion departmental, and I was at the University of North Texas, which is a big music school, massive percussion department. And it was the last departmental of the year, and the room was packed. And percussionists, we all know what percussionists look like. There's a bunch of like bearded, tattooed, scary looking drummer men, as well as like all sorts of like, just amazing musicians all stuck in the same room. And the first person that gets to go that day is this freshman, and it's their first show at school. It's the last departmental. They've been preparing the piece like the whole semester. And the piece is like on a vibraphone, like a two-part Bach convention or something. Just it's a relatively simple piece, and the person comes out, and like you could hear a pin drop in that room. Like folks held their breath. A giant room full of extremely established musicians leaned forward in their chairs and shut the fuck up in a way that was haunting. And then like
Mm.
so this freshman plays the piece flawlessly, fucking nails it, absolutely amazing. And like by the time that they're done, they can't contain their excitement. And they're like clap their hands a little bit and they sort of jump in the air, and the room explodes with hoots and applause and stomps and everything else. This giant room of folks being like, "Fuck yeah, welcome in, like one of us," right? And it's like,
Awesome.
and I sat through it and I watched it and I thought this is incredible. And then I went to a composition departmental where, undergraduates were playing their pieces, and there were like two snide graduate students in the back just kind of talking shit. And I kind of thought, right, I want to be back at that other community where a bunch of
Yeah.
people are massively supporting somebody's effort, practice, and like all of the nerves that it takes to actually perform this for other people in the way that it happens. Like I want that level of encouragement. I want it all the time. All this like tough words make you stronger. No, absolute
No.
nonsense. It's not about criticism or hate. And I think that Weekly Beats benefits from an extreme timeline, right? An extreme also amount of like endurance that it takes to just consistently produce stuff
Mhm.
for a very long time. And that also means that like perhaps some like even if you are judgmental, like I mean, how many snide comments can you leave really before you realize that you got another Weekly Beats to write, right? So
Right. Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
whether mechanically or not, I think that there is something genuinely kind and supporting that is way more reminiscent of that percussion departmental that to me sort of is like a, a metaphor for like what I want a community to be. No
Yes.
gatekeeping, like welcoming everybody in, and then like and you have to live that too, right? And like that's the
Right.
yeah.
I mean,
um
it's nice to build people up, and it's nice to be in a community that builds people up.
yes, exactly. That's the and
Yeah.
yep. And so that just means that show up and like do that for others. That's all it takes.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and listen to songs and, like, just like listening to your stuff, expand my mind on what is possible with, like, a squeak toy kinda sound, or, like, just, like, you learn so much by intentionally listening to what other people are creating, and being like, wow, that, how many times have I listened to stuff on Weekly Beats, like, this isn't like my go-to playlist of stuff, but wow, I am blown away about what's possible from this human and what's possible in general in music.
yes. I also have to say this, like if you try to listen to Weekly Beats without being in it doesn't work the same way. Like there is some form of
Yeah.
empathy that I think is like mandatory of being a part of the same sort of pressure and to like constantly deliver. And I think that that's a critical sort of realization is that if you're in the middle of making stuff, you're a lot more
Yeah.
likely to be empathetic and kind to other people than if you're like a sideline observer, which is sort of is like, not as good as Skrillex or whatever. Like it's, just like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a certain amount of bonding, kind of like if you've ever worked at like a shit job that like you become really good friends with coworkers because like you guys survive that shithole. There's a
Yes.
little bit of like we're all out here on the front lines making a song every week, and everyone's do like under the same pressure, and like so we're kind of all in it together making it happen. So it does give you empathy every week of like, oh, this other person is just trying to make music just like me, like we're doing the same thing.
Yes. But it's also great when you hear people grow and like it's a larger narrative, right? Like when you follow a bunch of folks and like even if you discover somebody like midway through and then you go listen to their like past work and you just kind of go like, oh snap,
Yeah.
like this is like so much of a difference between something. And I think that that's the part that is also really cool because as I said, like it's not about absolutes, it's about the relative sort of steps that we all take towards
Yeah.
some form of something. And that's, I think, the reason why most of us come away from weekly beats with like, I was too precious about my stuff, or like I care too much. I wanted to make it perfect, or like all of these types of lessons are all, I think, in part from witnessing what it actually looks like when you're just grinding alongside other folks and just seeing
Yeah,
this collective like kind of move forward. Yeah, I think it's awesome.
it is awesome. Are you gonna do 2026?
Yeah, I my main concern was to make sure that I could do that without about like in August of 2022, my spouse told me that this has been a relatively lonely year for them, and then I wanted to make sure that I fixed that, in many different ways without doing this. And then like in 2024, it was a conscious decision not to do weekly beats because we've had a lot of things going on that year, and being a good partner is pretty
Yeah, yeah.
important. Especially with some like we've been together for
Yes.
21 years. Like we have a relationship old enough to drink, which is
Ah,
crazy. So that's
that is
yeah,
crazy.
and like neither one of us feels like we're old enough for that, but like, but apparently we are, and it's happening. So yeah, and it was if it wasn't for the fact that my spouse told me like I think you should do weekly beats next year, like I wouldn't be as sure, but now it's official. So definitely
Awesome. I'm
yes,
I'm looking forward to hearing what you make,
kicking back.
and yeah, yeah, and maybe you'll do a remix of one of my songs. I don't know.
Yeah,
That'd
perhaps.
be sweet. Because yeah, it's really cool to hear what you do with other people's stuff, and I'm interested to try it now too because of your reports of like what you've learned from just dissecting other people's music and like uh, doing your take on it. And we are near the end of our show, and
Great.
I'm gonna play it out with a live set from 2024, week 24. Uh, the title is Jimac Bratwurst Remix and Carousel.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you want to fill us in on what we're about to hear?
Sure. Jimac remix was, so as I said, Jimac. I've known Jimac for years, and like we've lost touch, and then resurfaced in the same tracker scenes, and the track. So if you find the 2022 link of the actual Jimac remix, because as I said, I played live all of my 2022 material live in 24.
Got it. Yeah.
I did. I linked. I think somebody asked, and in the comments, I mentioned like the whole story of how I know Noggin and Jim Mac, and I believe I have shared Jim Mac's Sphere, which in high school was like my go-to sort of like I still think extremely highly of this track, but in high school it was one of those things where I was like, one day I'll be able to do this, or
Got
like one
it.
day I can
Okay.
kind of come close. It was like the guiding light.
Your North
And
Star.
yeah. So and the at the end of the live set for Modbang, I wanted to play Jim Mac's song because it fit the BPM of "Dirty," the track before it, which is a crazy dance track, and then sort of have the Jim Mac remix be a calming thing that kind of transitions into the finale, which is Carousel. And Carousel at the time, this is not true anymore, but in 2022 was the first and only proper house track that I've made. And I only did it because Noggin was bugging Jim Mac and I to make tracks for him to play live on his like
Nice.
sort of little mini tour where he had like played a bunch of M8 work.
Cool.
Yep. Some
And
so
Carousel's the one that you talked about earlier that like it's all the same stems now, but it's drastically different from the version that we're hearing now.
Yes, the one the current version, like even if it may have to sort of have similar kinds of, I don't know, idea of like got to build at the end, and then like you build and you build and you build and you build. All of those things are way more effective now. I can send you or share in Discord like a live recording from later that year where Carousel
Cool.
changed for the first time. Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah,
But yeah, it's a great set. I think your transitions are great. That's one thing that I think about when I'm like, "Hmm, should I put together a set?" And I'm like, "Oh, how am I gonna move from this to this?" So, well executed.
thanks. You I think the M8 ability to like render, like a quick render into a sample, is actually makes this way easier now, because you can now like render just the ending of a particular song, then load it
Oh,
as
and
a
switch a
sample of the next
project.
one. Yeah, and then like as you're switching them
Yeah.
live, like it actually gives you the thing. I need another M8 that I can use live. I have three of them, but only one, my Model 2, is good, because my old Model 1, the jack is messed up, and my BRK edition randomly turns off, and I can't bring myself to bug Trash 80, because I see them live a very unhealthy life on Discord, and I just feel like if I'm adding to
Yeah,
their
yeah.
pile, that's like immoral.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I feel that.
yeah,
Yeah, you can't bother him about your one of your 3 work not
yeah,
working.
exactly. It's not like I'm blocked. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool. Alright, well, dude, thanks for being on. This has been ear opening, eye opening to hear about more of your processes, and everyone go check out more of his music. Like the sound design is next level. I hope to see more quick little videos of like some sound design tidbits of just like I'm just curious how you go explore and experiment in the M8. And yeah, excited to hear more stuff you create.
yeah. Thanks for having me, and huge thanks to Cat Break for volunteering me, because I secretly wanted to be part of the show
Yes.
for like a long time. And if it wasn't for Cat Break, I would not have. Yeah, I would not have volunteered myself, because that's impolite. So thank you,
And
Cat
it's
Break.
not impolite. People out there that want to be on the show, it is not
uh,
impolite to volunteer yourself. So like
this
pull
show,
up.
no. Okay. Yes. All right. All
Thanks,
right.
man. Thanks.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
All right, we're gonna play it on out. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. And we're back. All right. We'll catch you later. Bye.
Guinea circles, guinea circles, guinea circles, 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 spun mo guinea circles, guinea circles, guinea circles, 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 spun mo guinea circles, guinea circles, guinea circles, 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 spun mo guinea circles, guinea circles, guinea circles, circles.
a local and temporary phenomenon. Meaning emerges from configurations of atoms. We're very, very rare configurations of atoms, I think.